Why German mechanics were baffled by the American Sherman's engine. The year is 1944. Germany's Wehrmacht rolled out some of the most fearsome armored vehicles ever conceived. Tanks like the Panther and the legendary Tiger were truly moving fortresses, boasting formidable sloped armor and devastating high-velocity guns that could penetrate Allied armor from astonishing distances. German engineering was widely regarded as the pinnacle of technological advancement, and the High Command believed this superiority would easily counterbalance the immense industrial might of their enemies. However, beneath the terrifying facade of the Panzer divisions lay a hidden crisis. German tanks were incredibly complex, notoriously delicate, and prone to frequent breakdowns. Their engines and transmissions were pushed to the absolute limits of design, demanding constant, intricate adjustments, highly specialized tools, and a vast army of expertly trained mechanics just to keep them operational. When the Western Allies stormed into Europe, German mechanics frequently encountered captured American M4 Sherman tanks. Their initial assumption was that American equipment was crude, cheap, and poorly made. Eager to mock the enemy's perceived inferiority, German engineers would pop open the Sherman's rear engine decks. What they found inside, however, wasn't a source of amusement, but a profound engineering culture shock. It was a masterclass in mass production that utterly baffled the German mechanical mind and exposed a critical flaw in their entire war effort. The first thing that puzzled German mechanics in early model Shermans was the unusual engine configuration. Instead of a traditional water-cooled automotive engine block, the Americans had ingeniously crammed a massive 9-cylinder radial aircraft engine into the back of a 30-ton tank. This was the Wright R975 Whirlwind, an air-cooled engine originally designed to power airplanes. To fit this large circular engine into a rectangular tank hull, American engineers mounted it at a sharp angle, connecting it to a long drive shaft that ran directly between the crew's feet to the front transmission. To a German engineer steeped in rigid automotive design principles, this layout seemed completely unconventional, loud, impractical, and seemingly ill-suited for ground warfare. Yet, as the German mechanics began to dissect the radial engine, their skepticism morphed into utter disbelief. Because it was an aircraft engine, it was built to an exceptional standard of reliability that conventional tank engines could only dream of. An airplane, after all, cannot simply pull over if its engine sputters. This radial powerhouse was designed to run at high power for hundreds of hours continuously, without a single mechanical failure. Moreover, its air-cooled design eliminated the need for complex radiators, water pumps, hoses, and fragile coolant lines, components that constantly fractured on German tanks when subjected to rough terrain or nearby artillery blasts. The Americans had brilliantly sidestepped traditional tank maintenance problems by adapting a proven, incredibly robust aviation design. As the war progressed, newer Sherman variants, most notably the M4A3, introduced an entirely different power plant that surprised the Germans even more: the legendary Ford GAA V8. The Ford GAA was an absolute triumph of industrial minimalism. It was a massive 18-liter aluminum block engine, also originally intended for aircraft before being expertly adapted for the Sherman. German tank engines, like the Maybach HL230 found in the Tiger and Panther, were incredibly intricate. They featured complex system arrays, delicate chain drives, and thousands of tiny, highly synchronized moving parts. If a German mechanic needed to adjust the timing or fix a valve on a Maybach engine, they required hours of uninterrupted time, a pristine workshop, and a specialized kit of custom tools. The Ford GAA V8, by contrast, completely rejected this philosophy. It utilized dual overhead camshafts, a remarkably clean modular layout, and an absolute minimum of moving parts. German mechanics noted with astonishment how incredibly sparse the entire engine block appeared. There were no complex wire tangles, no delicate custom fittings, and everything was easily accessible. An American crew, with basic training and a standard set of commercial wrenches, could completely service the Ford engine right in the middle of a muddy field. It was an engine designed explicitly to be robust and serviceable by young conscripts who often had experience fixing farm machinery back home. The true revelation for German mechanics came when they grasped the American approach to component replacement. If a German Tiger tank suffered a catastrophic transmission or engine failure on the front line, it was a logistical nightmare. Given the immense weight of German vehicles and how tightly integrated their components were, fixing a major mechanical issue often required sending the tank to a specialized rear area depot. Mechanics sometimes had to use a massive portal crane to lift the entire heavy armored turret off the chassis just to access the transmission components underneath. The Sherman tank offered a brilliantly simple solution: modularity. German engineers discovered that the Sherman's front transmission housing was bolted directly to the outside of the hull nose. If the transmission broke, mechanics didn't need to remove the turret or dismantle the tank's interior. They simply unbolted the front nose piece, slid the entire broken transmission out as a single self-contained unit, and slid a brand new one in. The entire process could be completed in a fraction of the time it took to service a Panther tank. The Americans didn't view a tank as a unique, handcrafted piece of military art. They saw it as a consumer appliance. If a part broke, you didn't spend days repairing it. You simply replaced it with a mass-produced identical component. This fundamental difference in engineering philosophy profoundly influenced the strategic outcome of the war in Western Europe. German generals were constantly frustrated by their superior tanks being absent from the front lines, perpetually stuck in repair bays, awaiting custom-manufactured spare parts. At any given time, a terrifyingly high percentage of Germany's Tiger and Panther tanks were non-operational due to simple mechanical breakdowns, clogged fuel filters, or stripped gears. The Sherman, by contrast, was a logistical powerhouse. Because its engines were derived from mass production lines run by industrial giants like Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler, spare parts arrived at the front lines by the literal shipload. If a Sherman engine was completely destroyed, an American maintenance crew could execute a complete engine swap right inside a ruined barn in under 4 hours. German mechanics, in their confidential reports, admitted that while the American vehicle might be inferior in individual armor thickness and gunpowder, its mechanical reliability made it a far more dangerous weapon at a strategic level. A tank with a perfect gun is utterly useless if its complex engine catches fire before it even reaches the battlefield. The astonishment of these German mechanics inspecting the Sherman engine reveals a crucial lesson of World War II. The conflict wasn't ultimately won by the nation that designed the most complex, technologically advanced weapon. It was won by the nation that designed a highly effective weapon that could be mass-produced by the tens of thousands and maintained with absolute ease in the most challenging conditions imaginable. The German military elite may have looked down on the Sherman as a crude, basic vehicle, but the mechanics who actually had to turn the wrenches understood the terrifying truth. The simplicity of the Sherman's engine wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the ultimate expression of industrial strength. The Americans didn't build a tank to win an engineering beauty contest. They built a tank engine that was too simple to fail, too reliable to break, and ultimately completely unstoppable in its march towards victory.